Hello and welcome to the Hildebrand Project Fall Newsletter. I'm Christopher Haley, our Director of Publications and Marketing. And while I do have a number of interesting publication updates to share with you, both on things recently published and upcoming, we are going to begin with John Henry, who is going to tell you about one of the dear friends of Dietrich and Alice von Hildebrand and the Hildebrand Project as well, who recently passed away.
Yes, Christopher, it's very difficult to say everything that one should say about anyone, in particular about someone like Madeleine Stebbins, who passed away on September 17th. She was just shy of 97 years of age. She lived a long and full and wonderful life. I had the great privilege of knowing her extremely well, particularly over the last 20 years. She was an intimate friend and supporter of the Hildebrand Project. She knew my parents, she knew my grandfather, and was a very significant presence in our family's life. She had a wonderful and moving life of faith. There was this rare combination of intelligence, depth of faith, gracefulness, kindness, gentleness, all in one person. And as you can imagine, this drew many people to her. But the funeral was a wonderful occasion because it gathered many of her friends and many of the friends of Dietrich and Alice von Hildebrand. And I can sort of begin in reverse order in painting this special friendship, this bond between her and the Hildebrands, by saying that I had not even realized myself until we were at the cemetery that the graves, the tombstones of Dietrich and Alice, of course, Alice to be buried there, and then the tombstone for Madeleine and her husband Lyman are literally back to back. They don't touch, but they're maybe half an inch apart. So you have this kind of permanent embodiment of a sisterhood in life and in death that was just extremely touching to see. But Madeleine got to know Dietrich and Alice von Hildebrand in her late teenage years. Her mother had already, I think, known of von Hildebrand, and so she has a wonderful description of reading von Hildebrand's book on marriage as a teenager, and she always described it as the opening up of a new world. She had been raised in a very orthodox and religiously observant Catholic family. Parents were devout Catholics, but she had never seen the beauty of marriage, marital love, the sacrament of marriage depicted with such in such a vivid and vibrant and moving way. And she describes sitting one afternoon as the sun was setting and reading this book and entering a whole new world. And it was to change her life, because she then went on to study under von Hildebrand at Fordham University. She did her bachelor's and her master's degree there. And had, for those who have met Madeleine, they know that she was incredibly self-effacing, and she was not an assertive person, but she was of the highest intelligence. And my father and I have often said to each other, would that we, when we are in our mid-90s, maintain the kind of literary and cultural diet that she was able to maintain. I know that she and my father discussed reading Rudolf Otto's book on the Holy a couple of years ago, and she was just fascinated by this. And they always exchanged, and she, with all of her friends in her last years, exchanged most of her communications by text message. And I will tell you, a text message from Madeleine Stebbins was a very special and thoughtful thing. So in 1943, I believe it was, she met Alice, or Lily von Hildebrand, for the first time. And Lily tells the lovely story that they were at an event together. Perhaps it was even in the company of Dietrich von Hildebrand. And this lovely young woman comes into the room, namely Madeleine, and Lily sees her from across the room, and she was so taken by her loveliness and her charm and her femininity and her warmth that she thought to herself, this is someone I wish would be my friend. And as it turns out, they became best of friends, lifelong friends, almost 70 years of fast friendship between the two of them. Madeleine, there's so much to be said about her and her life, and also the things that she did together with her late husband, Lyman Stebbins. I'll just mention for our listeners that she and her husband, or her husband with her support, were the founders of Catholics United for the Faith. And the publications of Catholics United for the Faith was called Lay Witness. And Madeleine produced a monthly essay in that publication in which she would comment on a work, usually of religious art, but not always, and she would open the work of art both artistically and spiritually. And these articles were very popular, and they were so voluminous that by the time, long, I think even after Lay Witness ceased being published, the idea was presented to her, why not produce a book? And so a book did result called Seeing a Masterpiece. And in this book, each of these works of art are beautifully reproduced in high quality color, and her individual essays are featured there. And so this is somehow like Madeleine, that she would quietly produce these nuggets of real wisdom and understanding, both artistic and spiritual, in the pages of a magazine, and not perhaps think too much of them, only to find out that they really were quite a gem. And so the book, which is available, I certainly recommend to all of our viewers. So I guess just to wrap up my reflections on Madeleine, she was a member of the Hildebrand Project's advisory council from the very start, when we were founded in 2004. She was a loyal and generous supporter in all ways, perhaps above all in her hospitality. Whenever I went to New York to go and work and visit Lily van Hildebrand, I would almost always stay with Madeleine in her beautiful apartment in Bronxville. And she simply embodied to me in an unparalleled way. Of course, all of this was her own. This was her own faith and these were her own intellectual commitments, but she embodied in a most wonderful way also the world of Van Hildebrand that she had received in a very deep way. She, in her years at Fordham, she served as his assistant, and I think for 8 years. That is to say, she served as an assistant for these tours he took students on to Europe to go see the great masterpieces of art, particularly religious art in Europe. And she accompanied him on all of those trips. And there are wonderful photos of her and the various students. There's one in a gondola that we have to dig up and share with our audience. But she was so formed by this depth of religious passion and love for beauty, and really a heart burning with charity, that I think in some very important ways were planted in her and nourished by Dietrich von Hildebrand. So it's tremendously sad to lose someone who is so dear. At the same time, it's bittersweet because I know that she's one of those people where you say, if she's not in heaven, none of us have a chance. And knowing that she's reunited with her beloved husband and with so many of her dear friends and family, and yet it's a tremendous loss to us here at the Hildebrand Project. She was such a source of, one really came to understand what she had received from Van Hildebrand through her ability to share it and articulate it. So, in this very modest tribute of mine, I just want to bid her farewell and rest in peace, and at the same time, thank God for the gift of her life and the gift of her friendship to Alice van Hildebrand and her untiring support of our work. But Christopher, a natural segue here to all the things you want to share with us is that her great love of beauty, he reminded me before we started here, was also reflected in the fact that she loved the book covers of the books. I was
very proud of that.
And I know you were
very
proud of
relieved
that
too. If Madeleine didn't like them, I don't know what we would have done.
I know it was very important, but that's a special tribute to you because these are book covers that you've been designing from the beginning, and I know she would have loved. She never saw the latest book cover, but she would have loved it.
Well, and thank you for that remembrance. I only barely knew her, but she was a lovely and remarkable woman, and we benefited so much from being able to ask her questions. And I've learned so much indirectly through her and from her. So. But she would have, no doubt, been very, very glad to see at last a Vermeer on a cover of a Hildebrand book. We've been trying. We've really had this painting picked out for years, and we've been working on this book for years too. It took a long time for various reasons, which we talk about in the book, that we were incorporated the German editions to the English edition from the German, and it had a long history. But What is Philosophy is now out and available. If you haven't picked up a copy, do. It's really a masterpiece of a work. and distinct among all of Hildebrand's works in laying out his epistemology and philosophy of knowledge. If you missed it, we did a book launch event on the book recently with John Crosby and Mark Spencer and Father James Brent. It was a wonderful conversation. That video will be shared as well. And we have a few new books that we're working on. Still, the next to come out will be one of our pocketbook editions of Dethronement of Truth, which is going to be a very timely release. And we are making steady progress on a couple of translations. Metaphysics of Community is still underway, and we're very near to completion of one of Hildebrand's early academic works on the knowledge of moral values, a very significant work. And we are going to soon be announcing our first audiobooks. So a new initiative of the Hildebrand Project will begin with The Art of Living and progress through more books. So those should be coming all by the end of the year still. I've probably missed some things. We have so many other things in production right now, but stay tuned for more soon. So. John Henry, any concluding thoughts?
Well, only to say that I, in particular, am extremely excited about the Hildebrand audiobooks. We've had a number of samples that have come in, and when I began to listen to the first sample, which was the opening portions of The Art of Living, it was just it was very moving to hear the words of Van Hildebrand read expressively, and it's not just the book in another format. It's really an access point, and I think that for many people today who struggle to find time to read, these audiobooks will be a wonderful way of letting them absorb all that Van Hildebrand has to offer, and benefit by these editions. So I can't say how excited I am about those.
And it's so Hildebrandian too, because he wrote these books, but he spent so much of his time and energy lecturing and giving these informal talks and hosting these salon evenings. And so the spoken word is a very natural means for his philosophy. And so we'll tell you all about it more when you can actually buy them. But soon.
Yeah. So they're in progress. And it's worth noting that The Art of Living began as a series of radio addresses by Van Hildebrand. I assume by Van Hildebrand. I've never verified that, but they were presumably given by him I think in Munich in the 1920s or early 30s. So we're coming full circle here with our audio edition of this book.
Well, we'll let you know when those are out. Pick up What is Philosophy? Look for Dethronement of Truth soon. Thank you all very much for joining us.